Long way home, supplemental, little courage. Everybody aboard the Long Way liked to talk about courage a lot, which made some sense to Vi, since their whole ordeal had been scary right from the start. She wasn't quite sure whether she believed Jason when he said that you can only be brave when you're afraid, but she hoped he was right. It was hard to believe he was right when he was always doing so many scary things without looking like he was afraid at all, and she knew in her heart that Jason was very brave. She might even go so far as to say that he was the bravest of them all on their little ship, struggling on their way home. Certainly braver than her, since she was terribly afraid and hardly did anything scary, let alone anything like fighting the bad guys, or like saving lost ladies, or keeping sacred oaths. But after all the things that Jason had done for their little crew, he only ever said that he was only doing his bit. That made it a little easier for Vi to take pride in her bit. Her bit today being taking stock of their supplies. Supplies that were, thankfully, augmented by the all-too-brief stay on this unnamed planet. The spot that Cadet had picked out to sit down was beautiful, though, and the lake had not only been wonderful to swim in, but had a bunch of weird, clawless lobsters for her to catch. However, even while she was in the water, she couldn't help but think of how bad guys suddenly came down on them and spoiled everything on the lost planet. The mere thought of those poor people being forced to fight like that made her fur stand on end. That was bad enough, but it wasn't the only thing on her mind. No. Even though Isis Magdalene had made Jason an eye patch, she couldn't look at him without remembering his mangled form, his bloodied face, his arm twisted the wrong way, and how afraid she was that he might die. At least Vi could be happy that Jason's arm was finally healed. However, as she watched Jason rise up on his tiptoes to pull out various canned vegetables from high cabinets, her mind called forth how she had struggled with simply daily tasks for just over a month without the use of his left arm. She'd asked him if the world only gets scarier, and he said that she'd get braver, and Mr. Vincent agreed. Mr. Vincent was very wise, of course, and only pretended to be sour old grouch, but Vi was worried that they were wrong about her. Even so, the pale candle flame of hope that they were right never quite went out. "Is there anything else up there?" Vi asked. She thought about calling him so, since it used to be funny to make him get all flustered over that, but she couldn't quite bring herself to do it. "No," he answered, as he closed the door and turned around to start sorting out their finds on the floor. "No, not floor." Tran had told her that this called a deck on a ship. The Long Way might have been little, but that was no reason to treat her like a fine ship she was. Jason started to neatly arrange the cans in rows on the deck, and Vi immediately started mentally sorting the rows from least to most gross. "Not looking forward to eating those," Tandre said from her end of the kitchenette, where she was making a list of perishables in the fridge for Vi. "They're calories," Jason muttered as he worked. Vi snapped the deck with her tail before she could stop herself, and despite everything she put a warmer smile and said, "I'll do my best to make them taste good." Vi noticed that Tandre grimaced slightly, like she thought she'd said the wrong thing again, and confirmed it by murmuring, "Sorry, Vi, I didn't mean that you won't do a good job." Poor Tran was always so worried about hurting Vi's feelings. Always so worried that someone she cared about would get hurt. Vi knew it was important to make sure her friend knew that she wasn't hurt without being too obvious. That'd make her think that she was hurt, for sure. Therefore she said, "With canned veggies, I'm worried that nobody could do a good job." Tandre nodded sagely, and Vi knew that she succeeded. The youngest girl noted the stock down on the tablet she was using, and went to say, "I'll have the Long Way do a little math, but I think we're going to have to eat this, the canned meat, too." The Long Way rocked ever so slightly, and Vi knew that meant that Mr. Vincent and Cadet had lifted off. But since they didn't tell them to strap in, it was because it was time to go, and not more cause more bad guys had showed up. She breathed a sigh of relief she didn't know she was holding when she realized that a Long Way wouldn't have to go freefall again to put more power into the thrusters. She hated freefall. "Next cabinet?" Jason asked brightly, and when Vi nodded her answer, he started diligently putting the cans back where he found them. "I can check all the low ones by myself," Vi told her friends with a nervous flick of her rounded ears. "If you guys have something else that needs doing, though, it's okay if—" "Not a problem." The tone never failed to lift Vi's spirits when Jason used it. "I don't have anything that important to do. Not as important as helping you make sure I don't starve, anyhow." "Same," Tandre bluntly said. "I already got some components loaded into printer for better radios, and I don't need to watch them to be printed." "Thank you," Vi softly squeaked. She tried to show how much she meant it in her small voice. By the time they'd finished, Mr. Vincent had returned from steering the bridge. Mr. Vincent had returned from the bridge while Tran went down to the engine room to tinker, and Jason went to the weight room to punching bag. Vi knew that she should probably go have a workout too, but Jason always got so intense that it was hard to focus on her own exercises. It was awfully distracting to live with heroes sometimes. Mr. Vincent was a little less distracting, since all he was doing was lounging on the couch, which obviously meant that Vi's favorite pillow was available for snuggling. The young girl scampered across the deck to clamber up and snuggle closely with one of the nicest people Vi had ever met, who tried to give her a grumpy grunt. It didn't work, of course, because he also let his arms slide down around her in a protective and very cozy embrace. Vi started up the long ways LLM and started putting in all the raw data about her inventory while the old man grumbled, "I am not a pillow, you know."
"You're soft and comfy and warm,"
Vi said as she purposely nestled her back deeper into Vincent's side. "Well, how cozy is a tickle attack?" Vincent exclaimed before working his front claws into her ribs with a sudden action. Vi let out an uncontrolled squeal of laughter and squirmed in the confines of Mr. Vincent's embrace while she fought to tell him, "Stop, stop!" He did stop, and though there was a still mischievous glint behind his eyes, the old man just asked, "What's up, sweetie?" A sudden pang of homesickness assailed the young girl, but she didn't tell Mr. Vincent. How could she tell him that he made her miss her own pa even more despite how making her feel better at the same time? She couldn't, obviously, so she said, "The food. We have maybe 2 weeks of fresh stuff before we have to get into the frozen stuff. I can work with the frozen stuff. I looked up ideas in my spare time because I don't like throwing out meat that you worked so hard to get for us. But that's only going to last 6 weeks. After that, I don't think I can make canned lima beans taste good." "Canned food isn't so bad," the old man gently told her. Vi looked up at him, aghast, and scolded him. "It's overcooked, soggy, bland, edible," Mr. Vincent chided. Vi glared up at him and said, "I can't do that. I don't know engines. I can't reach the controls to fighting." She trailed off and tapped a little tablet with a rat-a-tat-tat before she could bring herself to say, "It's too scary for me. I can cook. I'm good at cooking. If I can't make the food good, then what?" "Are you afraid that we won't like you anymore if the food isn't wonderful?" Mr. Vincent scoffed, making it clear what he thought of the idea with the tone of his gravelly voice.
A little,"
Vi admitted in an embarrassed squeak. Mr. Vincent tightened his embrace around her and asked, "Don't you know that you're our favorite?" Vi's ears trembled with even more embarrassment as she tried to put on her best scolding tone. "Shush, I'm not." Vincent raised an eyebrow at her and said, "You're the cutest, you're the nicest, and even though you're the littlest, you work the hardest."
I don't think I work the hardest,"
Vi muttered.
"It's all I can manage to keep up with Jason and Tran."
"Who are bigger than you and used to space and life."
"Well, I guess, but Cadet takes a watch and he's learning how to pilot."
"He's tall enough to reach all of the controls and is a natural pilot," Mr. Vincent patiently explained. "And before that, he was awkwardly staying out of the way."
"Well, maybe I do work hard, but it's just like Jason says. I'm only doing my bit."
"Yep, and you're really, really, really good at it, sweetie. Face it, you're adorable."
"No," Vi snorted. "Jason's the adorable one. He's the human after all."
"You think that being a human is cuter than being a Vi? You must have hit your head diving in that lake." Vi didn't exactly have an answer for that, so she just giggled, then laughed. Once the humor had passed, Vi nestled into the old man with a soft sigh. It was strange. She felt safe, even though her memory dredged up when the man was bleeding and poisoned, at the very doorstep of death. She blinked away tears and shook her head to make the memory go away. She started tapping away at the tablet again, as she intended to do her very best. The rest of the day passed normally, or at least what passed for normally in Vi's extraordinary situation. She tidied up, had her own session in the weight room, reminded everybody that tomorrow was laundry day, made a nice dinner from the weird lobsters and vegetables foraged from their most recent stop, and went to bed in the girls' cabin with her 2 friends. Mr. Vincent stuck his head in to say good night, and Vi kept her eyelids popped open in preparation for what she knew was coming from the futon Isis Magdalene had laid out on the floor. Sometime later, Vi wasn't sure how long, and it happened, the exarch girl began to thrash and moan in her blankets, and Vi knew, with a pang of pity, that she was dreaming of the day she lost her friends and was kidnapped from the academy. Her face was pale pink, rather than the nearly ruby red of its normal color. Her blankets were twisted in knots, and tears streamed down her closed eyes. "Forgive me," the girl muttered in the grip of a nightmare. My courage was weak. Dance us through sorrows. Forgive. Y carefully clambered down to Isis Magdalene, who was becoming more and more tangled in her blankets, and took her hand in both of hers in gentle tenderness, just as she had done every night since the older girl had joined their mismatched little crew. Just like every other time, Isis Magdalene's unconscious thrashing eased somewhat. That slight calming was what Y needed to scoot closer to her friend's head and begin to gently stroke her dark hair and begin. She knew that Isis Magdalene probably would want to ask questions about the words if she was awake, and that she'd think it a very strange lullaby, since it was the one her pa sang her when she had bad dreams. But it worked. Hold on tight through the night. Waves may rock and winds may blow, but I'm here, so you don't let go. Hold on tight through the night. Hold on tight through the night. Come the calm or come the gale, I'm here and will not fail. Hold on tight through the night. Hold on tight through the night. The currents may have mighty sway, but I won't let you drift away. Hold on tight through the night. Hold on tight through the night. Reef or shoal or rock so hard, I'm here with you to stand guard. Hold on tight through the night. By the end of a soft, quiet song, Isis Magdalene had quieted in her slumber and lay still once again. Vi didn't let go of her hand, though, and didn't go to sleep herself yet. She knew well that sometimes it took 2 or maybe 3 times for the lullaby to fully banish her friend's nightmares, so she stood vigil until she was sure of her success. Then, and only then, did she let sleep overtake her, where she lay curled up around her older friend's hand, holding on tight. She didn't know it, but Vi was wrong about Jason being the bravest one among them. End of chapter. I'd greatly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Casper Arnholt, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.